Hello and welcome to Casually Criterion. My name is Chris.
And my name is Justin.
And my name is Mike.
Casually Criterion is the podcast where we watch through the Criterion Collection in spine order.
Today's episode is Spine number 12. This is Spinal Tap, directed by Rob Reiner.
Yes, and if you want to follow along with the show, follow along with what movies we're going to be doing next, let us know what you think about the show. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/casuallycriterion podcast. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at casualcriterion, or if you want, you can email us directly at casuallycriterion@gmail.com. And also worth noting, we actually started a Facebook group too, which I think is like facebook.com/groups/casuallycriterion. I'm not 100% sure on that URL, but if you go to our regular Facebook page, you can get to the group very easily from there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, hope to see you there.
Yeah. So this week's episode, we are going to do some movie news, what's on our mind. Then we're going to go into our Criterion film of the week, which is This Is Spinal Tap. It's going to be a lot heavier than the last Criterion film. We have a lot of thinking that we're going to have to do, soul-searching after we watch this movie, but it's going to be fun. So...
It's not nearly as funny as The Seventh Seal.
Yeah.
No. But what is?
Yeah. I just wanted to say real quick, I've been listening to this podcast the last 3 episodes, and you guys have been doing a great job. I'm really glad to be back, guys.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back, Chris.
Yeah. I leave for 3 weeks, and you get another host. Is that what happens?
Yep.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just me.
This is awkward.
Me shouting into the void. And before we get into the movie discussion, we're going to do our movie news and what's on our mind segment. And first up, Mike, what do you got?
Actually, I just watched something recently. It was Aaron Sorkin's directorial debut, Molly's Game. Have either one of you guys seen this yet?
No, I saw the trailer, and it didn't really shoot to the top of my list of things I wanted to watch.
I haven't seen it yet either. I've been a little preoccupied, but I'm excited about seeing it for sure.
I think you should. It's Aaron Sorkin's directorial debut. The script is good, as always, as per the usual Aaron Sorkin. Great dialogue, snappy dialogue. Everyone's really smart. But it turns out he's not a bad director either, and Jessica Chastain is really good in it. She got snubbed for an Academy Award this year for this movie, but that's okay because it seems like Jessica Chastain looks like she's going to win an Academy Award a couple times in her lifetime.
Yeah. Do you think that she got snubbed like over somebody else, or do you think there were just maybe like more than 5 performances?
Ooh, I honestly would say, let me look up the best actresses real quick, and we can kind of trim this down in a minute. So the best actress nominees this year, I would say I think she should have gotten nominated over Meryl Streep or Margot Robbie.
Okay, fair enough.
That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah,
but,
I thought Margot Robbie was really good in I, Tonya.
Definitely,
but,
she's super good.
Maybe Jessica Chastain's better.
I haven't seen Molly's Game yet, or I, Tonya, or The Post, so my opinion is invalid.
Yeah. Is there anything else in the movie, or what else? I guess beyond Jessica Chastain's performance.
Well, I'll be vague because I'm one of those people that likes to go into movies knowing as little as possible. But you got Idris Elba, Kevin Costner, both in supporting roles. Both really good. Probably the best Kevin Costner has been, I don't know, maybe since like the 90s. But yeah, I would say mostly you're there to watch really tight, good dialogue delivered well. It's good. It's about like an underground gambling ring run by Molly, played by Jessica Chastain. And that's all I'm really going to say. But she gets in trouble with the law, and she has to try to figure a way out of it.
And it's based on a true story, just like the Facebook movie, right?
No, I didn't know that, but yeah, probably.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yes, the true story of Molly Bloom. There we go.
Also based on a true story is Mike's next next topic of subject.
That's right. Yeah, next up on the chopping block, I guess, would be Solo, a Star Wars Story trailer just debuted this morning. I don't know whenever you are listening to this, but as we record it, the full trailer dropped, I don't know, like 12 hours ago. And have you guys got a chance to watch this yet?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What did you guys think?
Well, I watched the teaser trailer thing that came out. I guess did it come out during the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
During the Super Bowl.
I watched that last night, and then I watched the full trailer today. And I much prefer the teaser trailer. I guess it kind of goes with what you're saying before, that like you like to go into movies knowing as little as possible.
Sure.
And,
Normally I would agree with that, but this movie in particular, I was just too curious to not watch the trailer.
Yeah, there's kind of been, I mean, it comes out in 4 months, so it's kind of been like, is this going to be a good movie? The director got replaced, kind of last minute, like during filming, and Ron Howard had to come in, and we haven't seen anything from it. So like this trailer is like, what's going to happen here? Is it going to be good?
Right. There were even rumors that they like reshot up to like 80% of the movie.
Of what they had already filmed?
Right, yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, more than anything, I'm just curious because this seems like a Star Wars movie that no one really wants to happen. But everyone is super curious as to how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious. I'm probably falling, like, I don't necessarily want it to happen. I don't want to know more about Han Solo necessarily. I want it to be in my mind. But, like, but I'll go see it. I'll give him my $10.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'm certainly more excited for this than I ever was for Rogue One.
Really? That's like the exact opposite of me. I'm more curious about this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess excited it might not be exactly the right word, but like I guess maybe it's curiosity as well, I guess. But for whatever reason, I feel like I'll probably go to theaters to see Solo, whereas I just never had that drive to see Rogue One. I didn't watch it until it was came out on Netflix.
Man, I was really curious. I was really excited for Rogue One, and I'm less excited about Solo. But so it should be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with Chris. So far I've enjoyed everything that Disney has done since they've acquired Star Wars. I know it's probably only a matter of time before I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I'm enjoying myself still.
Yeah. I think the trailer looks very good. Like that was one thing that stuck out to me.
Yeah, it definitely looks really pretty.
I guess that if I'm going to be like overly critical and nitpicky, like and maybe I'm the only one, but like just seeing Donald Glover in it is slightly distracting to me because I know him so well from other things. Because no one else in the movie that I remember, or in the trailer that I remember, was recognizable.
You don't watch
Emilia Clarke.
Yeah, I don't think you don't watch.
I don't know who
Game of
that
Thrones,
is.
though.
Everyone in the world who watches Game of Thrones, though, will recognize her, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I would argue that she might be more recognizable than Donald Glover.
She doesn't have the blonde hair.
Yeah,
That's true.
Does she have the music career that Donald Glover has with Childish Gambino?
No, but she has a more prominent, in-your-face part that's been on TV for like 8 years. And
It's probably a toss-up.
Donald Glover has been in a couple hit shows, but I don't know.
Yeah.
For some reason, I feel like Game of Thrones reaches more people than Community ever did, or Atlanta.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know.
Although Atlanta,
Atlanta's great. Have you guys watched that?
I have not.
Oh man, it's
good.
Really, really good.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's just I've only seen Community, so seeing Donald Glover in that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be like Han and Lando in the morning.
Yeah.
It's a Community joke. I have a question, though, before we move on from Solo.
Okay.
Would you guys rather this new fellow, the guy from Hail Caesar who's playing Han now, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. Let me get his name real quick. Would you rather this guy, what's his name? Alden, I can't say his last name. Enrique. Would you guys rather him do a really spot-on Han Solo, like Harrison Ford impression? Or would you rather him make it his own, a la like Roger Moore for James Bond?
Make it his own, I guess. I don't know how you do a Han Solo Harrison Ford impression. Like
I've thought about it ever since they've announced this movie, and I have no idea.
Is he unique enough to like really impersonate?
Right, he's just like an arrogant pilot.
Yeah.
Cocky American guy, So I feel like I saw on the internet a lot of people were expecting him to do like a Han Solo like impression, and a lot of people were disappointed with his voice. But I'm kind of in the let's wait and see what he does camp.
Yeah, for sure. I don't even know what a Han Solo impression would look like or what I would expect from that.
Yeah.
Maybe
absolutely.
a smirk, like the smirk, the Han Solo smirk. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
a
sure a
that'll
couple
be
good
in there.
smirk. He had a couple good smirks in the trailer.
yeah.
Good.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, before we move on, real quick, Justin, did you notice that Woody Harrelson, his line
Okay.
delivery in that trailer was better than anything in Three Billboards?
Yes, I did. And
That one line?
yeah, I admit that after Three Billboards, he's left such a bad taste in my mouth that I was a little like, oh no, he's in it for a second when I saw the trailer. But I guess his line delivery was fine. I don't really remember it off the top of my head, but I think I was like, oh no, Woody Harrelson, and that's totally unfair because he's not a bad actor at all.
And he's been in so many good things.
Yeah, it's completely unfair. It's just that taste that's left in my mouth from Three Billboards.
I actually cheered when Woody Harrelson came on.
Stood up and clapped.
Boom, boom, because Cheers. That was okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I thought we were just.
Yeah, I
I
thought
you
you
were
were
making
just
a
a
real
big
joke,
Woody
and we just had
Harrelson fan.
a very diverse group here in the podcast of people who cheer for Woody Harrelson and people who get bummed.
Yeah. So I think I've taken enough time. Chris, what have you been watching?
Well, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I wanted to talk about the Cloverfield release. If anybody was watching the Super Bowl, they had an advertisement for Cloverfield, and they just released it right after the Super Bowl.
What's it called?
Was that-
Cloverfield
Cloverfield,
Oh, is
the Cloverfield Project?
Cloverfield Paradox.
Paradox.
There it is.
Neither one of you guys watched it, did you?
No, I
yet.
just watched the trailer. Was this the debut?
Yeah.
Like,
so they
so
did.
this is the first time anybody's seen any footage, any sort of trailer,
Yeah.
anything.
They showed a
And
trailer, a teaser, and then it was about 2 hours later, it was on Netflix.
yeah, that's
And-
really interesting and kind of cool.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably the best marketing Netflix has done for any of their official releases.
Yeah. Usually I don't care with Netflix and stuff like that. The more good stuff that's out there, the better it is for all of us. We just get to watch it. But
Sure.
I am, whether the movie's good, whether it's bad, I'm actually disappointed. I wanted to go to the movie theater and watch this, so yeah, I don't know. I wish that it wasn't on Netflix, or at least it had some sort of release in the theater so I could go watch it.
No, I totally agree. I mean, you can watch it at home, but I understand what you're saying. It's part of the conversation for longer whenever it has a theatrical run.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way about that Laura Dern movie from Sundance, The Tale. Apparently, it was bought by HBO, so I mean, I'll get to see it on HBO Go soon, which is nice.
So you don't think HBO is going to release it?
I don't know. I guess maybe they will, but I just had the impression that they're going to go ahead and just go straight to their online platform and release it some Sunday night whenever they're in between seasons of things.
Yeah, it could be. I think that HBO, unlike Netflix, is still wouldn't it be great if HBO could win an Oscar, type of thing? So they'd put it out so that it'd be
Yeah, but their whole
available
thing
for
is
that.
home box office.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, anyways, so I'm excited to watch Cloverfield, and apparently Cloverfield 4 has already been filmed, and so who knows?
Yeah. I mean, did the movie look good to either of you guys? Having watched the trailer?
I haven't even watched the trailer.
I haven't watched the trailer. I've only heard that it's not good.
Yeah, all the reviews I've read have said that it's not good. I'm still going to watch it. And if it's only 2 hours away, I don't need to watch the trailer. I can just go watch the movie whenever I want,
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I thought it looked interesting, which is a bit like the same territory that the Alien covers and that movie Life that came out recently that was basically Alien.
What did you guys...
Updated.
Oh, yeah.
It
is
kind
that
of reminded
the
me
one
of those.
with Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
Is there anything else on Cloverfield?
No, just that it's crazy that it got released so fast and just dropped.
Yeah. I guess
That's what Netflix does.
Yeah, we've had Netflix releasing movies without theatrical releases forever, releasing their own content. But I guess this is the first one that they've really put a big marketing campaign out for, I think. Or
I mean, was there a big I don't think that there was. I
guess any kind of marketing campaign.
I assume an ad during the Super Bowl I would count as a big marketing campaign.
My guess, because and this is not knowing anything, right? My guess is they had ad time, right? And I some of the movie news sites that I follow were reporting that Netflix had bought it. So my guess is that Netflix bought it, a few weeks ago, and they're like, "This is what we do," and they didn't know until like a month ago that they just had Super Bowl ad time, and they decided that they would put Cloverfield on there, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it'll set like a precedent of like Netflix is going to start doing bigger TV advertising for their original movies. I'm not sure if they did with that Will Smith one that just came out. That one was kind of well advertised, but
in the sense that we heard about it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, was it well advertised? I don't remember seeing an advertisement except for like on social media.
Yeah, I think Mike's right actually. As well advertised in the sense that I've heard of it, as opposed to other Netflix movies. Most of them I have not.
And I don't understand like why. And maybe somebody else can tell me, or you guys or someone can write in. But like, isn't Netflix kind of losing money? So they buy this movie for like, let's just say $20 million. Like, what does it hurt just to put it in the theaters? Aren't they going to make some money off of it? Or like, I just don't understand financially why they wouldn't want that extra money.
From what I understand, Netflix is open to having theatrical runs, but they're not open to like holding off releasing it simultaneously on Netflix itself. And the theaters don't want to carry movies
that are on both because why the hell would anyone go to the theater and pay $10 per movie and then maybe hopefully buy popcorn and drinks when you could just stay at home and pause the movie and go to the bathroom.
From a Netflix perspective, if you go to the theater to see their movie and you buy a $10 ticket, and even if Netflix gets all of that, they get paid $10 once. And if you really want to see the new Cloverfield movie, maybe you go subscribe to Netflix, pay $11.99, whatever it is now, even if it's $10, you pay $10. You decide you like Netflix. Now they get $10 from you every month, right? So it's just like, I think it makes more sense for them to. I feel like it would make more money potentially because you are setting up like repeat business. I don't know how many people don't have Netflix that would be
right. I think
excited.
Netflix's strategy is to spend a lot of money and become like indispensable to where like you can't imagine cutting the cord for Netflix because it's just like, well, I may not watch it every month, but
well, do you guys feel
2 or 3 times a year there's like a big show or a big movie that comes out that generates some conversation.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like could you go without Netflix?
Probably, but then again, I've watched like 4 Netflix things in like 6 months, and I just borrow my girlfriend's.
Original programming, you mean?
Yeah, I think the last show I watched was like Mindhunter, the David Fincher produced
really good show. Yeah, I think he directed a couple episodes.
Yeah, he directed a couple episodes of that, and then I think he produced the series.
Yeah,
they have some good content sometimes. But you wouldn't know about it unless you like are actively looking for well-reviewed stuff on Netflix, I feel.
Yeah, I hate looking for things on Netflix, trying to find something to watch. It's the worst, in my opinion. It's awful. Like, you just see the same, like, you have, like, 8 different categories that have, like, the same, like, 7 or 8 movies in them, and it's like, just show me different options. I don't know. I feel like my it's hard to find. You have to know, like, specifically what you want if you want to find something that's not like going to be featured on there.
Yeah, Netflix. I find like I get on Facebook maybe more. I know Mike, you're not on Facebook as much, but like I usually find what's coming out through Facebook, either through the movie news places or from Netflix themselves because I've liked them and it'll show up on my feed. I mean, usually I know when something new is coming out, so I don't have that disconnect where I'm like, I don't know that anything is coming out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. We can move on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And my bit is I recently watched a Criterion film that I have owned for probably like 6 years, I want to say. Bought it on DVD at some point in like a used movie store. Just, blind Criterion buys like I do a lot. And but I finally got around to watching this one, and it's Closely Watched Trains. And I don't remember the director's name because it's not someone I'm familiar with. And it's a Czech film. It's a complicated name that is hard to remember. But it is a part of the Czech New Wave. And I really liked it. Have either of you guys seen it?
I have not.
Neither have I.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I know that I like, French New Wave and other new waves. Oh, Jiri Menzel. That's actually not that hard of a name. The director's name is Jiri Menzel. Chris has pulled it up for me because he's awesome.
Yeah, what a pro.
Yeah, but it's black and white. It's just about a kid who wants to work watching trains, and it's kind of funny at the beginning of the movie. He's like, I wanted a job as like the train watcher because you don't do anything.
Wait,
like
so what does that job entail?
I'm not entirely sure. Having watched the movie, I don't really know. I know that like when trains go by, he like stands there and salutes them. And yeah, he doesn't do a lot, but that's like his whole. He's like, I want to get that job because it's I get a uniform, and I get to like hang out there and get paid, but I don't have to do anything. And it's sort of like this coming of age movie. It's set during World War II, and I think if you're a fan of like French New Wave and that sort of stuff, there's a lot to really like about it. And I guess unlike some of the other French New Wave movies, this one didn't like feel aged. Like there's a lot of like the humor in the story that like sits well today.
It's kind of universal.
Yeah, timeless is I think the word that I'm trying to say. But yeah, I watched it and I feel relieved because it's been sitting there on my shelf like staring at me every time I'm trying to pick out a movie for a long time, and I feel like I probably have like 25 or 30 more of those sitting on my shelf that I need to get to eventually. But this one felt really good to knock one of those off the list, so I just wanted to talk about it.
What spine number was it? Do you know?
It's like 100 and it's somewhere in like the mid hundreds. So we'll get to it in a while.
4 years.
Yeah.
I look forward to it.
Or if it's really good and someone wants us to review it earlier, let us know. We can jump ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
For an episode.
Okay, well, we are done with the movie news, so let's move into This Is Spinal Tap.
This is a top to what we use on stage, but it's very, very special because if you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board. 11, 11,
and most of
11,
the amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
Okay, so this is Spinal Tap, spine number 12, directed by Rob Reiner, who's kind of a big deal in American cinema.
American comedy cinema, for
American
sure.
comedy cinema,
Yeah.
sure.
In the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, and he is the son of Carl Reiner, which I guess gives him a leg up in the world, in the film world.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt.
Carl Reiner did movies like The Jerk and Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid and The Man with Two Brains. I don't know where I heard this, but I heard that like, is Carl Reiner still alive? I don't know.
I don't.
But
think so.
at one point, Carl Reiner and like Mel Brooks are really good friends, and they hung out all the time. And like I think like every night they would hang out, eat dinner, and watch a movie together, which sounds amazing.
That's a good story.
It's sort of irrelevant to Rob Reiner or Spinal Tap, but I think it's fun.
He is alive.
Whoa, how old is
Okay.
he?
I don't know. He's born in 1922.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think him and Mel Brooks are both very old, but yeah, okay, so then I think it's still a thing that like every night they hang out, eat dinner, and watch a movie.
Makes sense.
I'm not sure how that may be a little bit of like hyperbole saying every night, but I think it's quite often.
Yeah, I think I remember Mel Brooks talking about that on a Mark Maron podcast once.
Maybe that's where I heard it.
Yeah.
Was it either that or maybe from you? Maybe you told me this story.
It all comes around.
Yeah. Okay. So he wanted to be a comedy actor growing up, and he broke into acting. He was one of the main characters in All in the Family.
Meathead.
Meathead was what Archie Bunker always called him. I can't remember his character's real name. It's something like Mike or something like that. Have any of you guys watched much All in the Family?
No, it came on when I was younger on like Nick at Night and stuff. But I'm dating myself. I'm 30, by the way. And yeah, it never was my thing. But I was also really young, so I didn't really think the racist, mean humor was funny.
Yeah, I remember my grandpa had a Archie Bunker glass that was I guess they were drinking it from it ironically. It was like an ironic gift. But other than that, I have not seen very much All in the Family. I never really got into it. I don't know.
I remember the theme song really well. Classic theme song.
Yeah, I know the theme song really well, but I don't think I've ever actually seen an episode or much of like.
What's the theme
any
song?
Episode. It's the one with the wife. She's singing and playing piano, and she's
Family Guy spoofs it.
Very,
okay.
Yeah, but she sings very horribly.
I was trying to get one of you guys to sing it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Nice try, Chris.
Yeah, so obviously that was a successful show. I think it ran for something like 7 or 8 years.
Right.
So that's pretty much success for him in being a comedy actor.
Sure, he could have quit after that and had a career that people would call a success.
Yeah. But he did not quit. He went on to make films, and his first movie is actually This Is Spinal Tap, which I think it's pretty successful.
Yeah, it may not. I don't know if it was successful financially, but it was definitely.
No, I've actually read that people that didn't quite get it.
Yeah,
when it came out.
Well, this is the first of the mockumentaries, right? I didn't look.
Not exactly. It's not exactly the first. There's other precursors to it, but I think it helped put them on the map. I think it's, in hindsight, looking back on it, it's like the first really successful one.
Okay. I
was looking up, and people kind of make the argument that Orson Welles doing War of the Worlds on radio was kind of a mockumentary, or at least fake documentary. I've seen a lot of arguments for that, and that kind of makes sense to me.
Or at least pushing the boundaries of the medium, showing people something they've never imagined the medium presenting to them before. Yeah,
and then there are some other examples I can't remember, but a few years before Spinal Tap came out, I want to say 3 years to maybe 2, Woody Allen released Zelig. And have either of you guys seen Zelig?
I have not.
Neither have I.
I think it's great. I really love it. It's a documentary made completely Ken Burns style, and it's Woody Allen is the main character, but only in photos and video, and it's about a guy who has the ability to, or basically has a chameleon-like ability that whenever he starts hanging out with fat people, he suddenly starts to balloon up and gain a bunch of weight. And when he hangs out with Jewish people, he suddenly starts to grow the curly hair and look very Jewish, and Asians, he looks Asian, right? But it's this documentary about this guy, and that's completely it's exactly like a Ken Burns documentary where it's talking heads being interviewed. There's archival footage of him talking to a therapist and stuff like that. But anyways, I'm rambling about Zelig now. But I think Spinal Tap, obviously the Zelig isn't this movie that everybody knows and everybody's seen and everybody's heard of, right? I think This Is Spinal Tap is seems like the one that really put this type of movie in the mainstream.
Right. Yeah, after this, Christopher Guest ended up doing 1 million mockumentaries.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think that's almost all he did.
Yeah, I don't know if he's done anything else besides mockumentaries himself, but I guess he liked being in this one so much. He thought, hey.
It's that improv. And it wasn't until, probably 10 years later that they even... Wait, when did it come out?
1984.
Okay. So, yeah, it was probably even closer to 20 years later before they really started coming out with the Christopher Guest came out with, A Mighty Wind and Best in Show and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that stuff was maybe mid to late 90s is when he really started churning out that stuff. So yeah, a little over 10 years.
He kind of had a
started.
group of people, like kind of an improv group almost.
Yeah, and I don't know. I didn't really get to look this up, but like I don't know how many people attribute this movie to like Christopher Guest. Like I know that Guest or like the three guys who are the main members, which is Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, and Michael McKean. Yeah, they all have credits for writing it along with Rob Reiner.
Well, does that come along with the improv? So
yeah, when there's so much improv and everyone's just kind of making stuff up, I guess you kind of have to credit them as a writer to some degree.
Or did they like actually come up with the story beats?
I mean, I think they came up with some of this story stuff. I know that I read somewhere that they tried to go and actually get all of the actors credited as writers because
they're all improv.
Most of the dialogue, if not all of it, was improvised.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted like the other actors in the film, like they should get writing credit just as much as we should.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about all I know about like,
That's interesting.
and them writing it. I know it was based on a sketch that they did for a TV show, and I guess Rob Reiner was like a producer or maybe a writer or something on the show. But that was like the first official appearance of Spinal Tap was on this sketch show. I guess it's some sort of variety show or Saturday Night Live type thing. But they all liked doing that so much that they were like we can do a film out of this for sure.
Yeah, and then they ended up getting with like hundreds of hours of footage and trimming it down. I would actually be interested to see if any of that footage is still surviving and if it's...
I was actually thinking about that earlier.
If it's really good or not.
Like, yeah, how much of that is just really, really boring or like bad improv jokes? Like, it'd be interesting to watch, but like as just a connection with this film. But then, is it going to be good, or they cut all the, is everything that's good in the movie itself?
Yeah, the Blu-ray that exists now, which is not Criterion, it's just like a regular Blu-ray disc. But I think also Criterion is the one who put this special feature together for their DVD release. There is like additional footage, like I think it's a little over an hour of additional like footage that wasn't used in the film.
Well, that leaves us like 96 hours left of stuff unaccounted for.
Yeah, and maybe they took like what exists and what they could get a hold of and cut it down to an hour. Because I mean, it would take a lot of disk space to put like 9 hours of footage,
and it would probably be excruciatingly boring.
Yeah, that'd be rough. But I think they maybe took like the best of and put it on there. So, which, as you said, Chris, is very cool. Like I watched most of the special features, but that's one that like I turned it on and it was like an hour long, and I was like, I don't have time to get through this, but I want to at some point.
Yeah,
I think worth noting too is that all of the actors are actually playing and singing their instruments, or at least like they played and sung their instruments when they were recording the songs and are lip singing the movie. But it is all them. Like what you're hearing is all of the actors.
Yeah, it's actually
Michael McKean singing and
yeah.
Which, by the way, speaking of Michael McKean, I just wanted to make a little sidebar real quick. He is so good in Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
Was he in that?
He is one of the main characters in Better Call Saul, and I got to tell you, man, he is so unbelievably good in that show.
Yeah, as soon as he's Better Call Saul is a great show to begin with, but Michael McKean,
it would not have been the same show without him.
Right.
He is essential to how good that show is.
And he's not playing a funny role in any sort of way, so definitely a change, and he's really, really good. It's a shame I don't think he's been nominated yet for like a Golden Globe or something. I don't think Better Call Saul really has at all. But anyways,
that's a sidebar. But
yeah, he's good. I mean, he's good in this. He's good in the other Christopher Guest movies that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not surprised to hear that he's also good still, like in Better Call Saul.
Mm-hmm.
I thought. Oh.
Sorry.
It's really funny. The IMDb page has a rating. When you can rate it, it goes up to 11. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, most films you can only rate 1 out of 10, but
good joke, IMDb.
But this one goes to 11.
Why?
It does.
We did actually have a listener question before we get too far into this that I wanted to address.
A casually Criterion first.
Yes, exactly. So, from @ThatJohnRogers, the question is, what have been some of the comments of real-life rock bands over the years on how the movie portrayed the lifestyle?
Anybody want to take this one?
Yeah,
I mean, I did a little bit of research, but I just...
Sure, I'm sure we've all done the same research. But it looks like, for a lot of musicians, it hit very close to home. Glenn Danzig from the Misfits said that this reminded him of being in the Misfits, and probably not in a good way.
Yeah, I've seen several quotes from different rock stars that like we've all heard of, that said they watched the film and like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry because it's so true. Like it's so close to the truth that like it really gets them. Like you said, it hits home.
Yeah,
and
to them, it's almost like so sad to I imagine to like a band that's in their twilight years and trying to stay relevant. I imagine this is probably not even funny.
Right.
In a lot of places.
I guess like the foundation of good comedy is truth a lot of the times, right? Like it's funny because it's true. And I guess like one reason that I think that this movie connects to me is I played in a band for, a few years of my life from like senior year of high school until about, 4 years or so after high school, and did the touring around thing, writing in a band. Nothing, I certainly was never some big band that even had like, I didn't even get to a place where like I can have a downfall from, right? Like,
right.
But even still, like just having those experiences and stuff, like the movie really connects with me in more ways than just being funny. So I imagine if you actually did live like fully that lifestyle, it would too. And one of the funnier quotes I saw was from Ozzy Osbourne, who like at first he actually thought it was real. He thought it was a real band and a real documentary, which a lot of people did, which I think is worth mentioning. And it's kind of hard to look at the movie now and like how could you
that way?
Think that?
Yeah.
And the quote from Ozzy after he found out that it was fake, he was like, yeah, he's like, I should have known, because he's like, honestly, they were way too tame. Like, he's like, we were way more wild than that. Like anybody in that scene, which I think is funny.
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually looking here there is a quote from, let's see.
Dee Snider.
No, it was, Steven Tyler. Yeah. Apparently Steven Tyler in 1997 said that when he first saw it, he didn't see any humor in the movie. So
He first saw it in 1997?
Well,
That's
the
my
interview
first
was in
reaction.
1997.
Oh, okay.
He said it in 1997.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 13 years later he watched it and still didn't know it was fake.
Yeah, it's like still not funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and so also from that John Rogers, he thought it was interesting that the movie came around the same time as the PMRC. And are you guys familiar with the PMRC?
No, go on.
It is the stands for the Parents Music Resource Center, and this happened in 1985. And of course, the film came out in 1984. I think they shot it in like 82, but it was when according to Urban Dictionary here, the PMRC is a group of hypocritical ass faces who decided to black mark every album containing explicit photos, lyrics, or themes because they felt violence in children stemmed from music. So the PMRC was these group, and it started with a group of women. I think they called them like the Washington women or something, because these were all the wives of politicians. The most famous one being is it Tipper Gore or Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife. But they basically heard this rock music that had like sexual innuendos or like straight up like explicit sexual language and swearing in it. And as the Urban Dictionary definition says, they thought that it was corrupting children and that sort of stuff. And they led the crusade. They formed the PMRC, led the crusade that ultimately ended up with the explicit logo that we have on CDs.
Parental
and
advisory.
records. Yeah, the parental advisory thing, which
The
we
black
all
and white.
know now, and
Yeah.
it's just part of everyday life. But until 1985, when they did it, they got together. That didn't exist, and there was like a big court case between them and like, Dee Snider, like Frank Zappa, even John Denver went and like was part of this case, like talking against these PMRC people, trying to get them to chill out because they wanted to ban music. Like,
Well,
it
Walmart-
seems like maybe the compromise was putting.
So basically,
the
they were like
mark on it.
the old people from the town of Footloose.
Yeah.
Yes.
Walmart used to bleep out the curse words. They'd go in and bleep them
Well,
out.
no, Walmart didn't go in and do it. The record label just sent them edited versions.
Okay, well, yeah, but it was just at Walmart. They requested them, right?
Right. Religious influence, I assume.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting in regards to Spinal Tap is, they made it before this was happening, and I guess maybe the ball had already started rolling on this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But they do have the whole issue with like their album cover, which is part of an issue throughout the movie. They're releasing their new album called "Smell the Glove," and the album cover that they want is like a woman with a collar on with a leash, and she's being forced to smell some glove, and the record label has an issue with it that it's sexist. And so I guess that kind of echoes what's about to happen.
And the Kmart stores and everything like that don't want to carry it, is what the excuse is that Fran Drescher gives them.
And look where that got Kmart.
Yeah.
If only they had carried Spinal Tap songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think our listener, that John Rogers, is related to Captain America?
Well, he says he's that John Rogers. So.
Yeah. I mean,
So
Steve
if you're
Rogers.
thinking of a Rogers, he's probably that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Okay. So do you guys want to talk about the actual film? Anything else you want to say about PMRC or?
What time, or at what point did you guys ever think Spinal Tap was a real band? I remember as a kid, I thought Spinal Tap, they had an album out. Like I hadn't seen the movie, but I had a friend that like maybe had watched or listened to something of theirs, and I thought they were a real band. So for a long time when I was a kid, I thought that they were a real band.
Interesting.
No, I'd always heard of it.
Yeah, I've always heard of it as a movie, as like a fake documentary. But it is worth noting that a lot of people did think that they were real, and eventually they did release like a real album
Yeah.
and do real tours. I did notice that looking at some of the special features, they had some like press sort of stuff with the actors playing Spinal Tap. And also, like there's a commentary track of them as as Spinal Tap
cool.
on the movie, and all of that is based on them talking crap about Rob Reiner's character, Marty DeBurgey. Like it's all them saying that like he took their footage and like made them look like idiots and
That's funny.
made it funny and made them look stupid, and like that's like all of the press that I've seen on it is them talking about how it's like a travesty and they were misrepresented and all that stuff, which is that they really went like the whole 9 yards on there.
Yeah, it actually kind of makes me sad that there's not like a second one, or like they didn't just continue this mockumentary band and like tour, like do fake tours and then release more albums, and just like it could have just gone on forever, right?
Yeah,
This
but
fake
but
band.
you feel like the second follow-up documentary would be even sadder because the way this one ends up going for their careers. I don't
What
know
if
if
they
I would
did-
want to watch another documentary.
Oh, this is perfect. What if
Detailing
they
that.
did a real documentary on their fake tour?
Yes.
Like, so is
It's like turning the idea, like giving
Yeah.
that idea one,
and
that
so they
extra
just pretend
twist.
to be the characters, but they're doing an actual documentary on it. That would be
Yeah, I would have watched that.
Yeah.
It might be out there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. If not, email Rob Reiner.
yeah.
What's he doing
Yeah.
lately?
I think we can get into like actually talking about the movie now and not just the context around it. Although I think some of the context around it is one of the most interesting things and like to talk about the movie. Like it's a very funny movie, in my opinion. But as far as like actual discussion, I think all of its history and what it caused and
And the
fooling
impact that it
people.
had. Yeah.
But yeah, so the movie starts out with this introduction by Rob Reiner as his character with the obviously fake name Marty DeBurgi, who is apparently a commercial director and saw Spinal Tap and fell in love with him. and I guess also shortly after that we get these testimonials from the fans, and I think like that whole thing is part of setting up this like real documentary feel.
Right, like Take This Waltz, or what's another one of those famous like 60s documentaries about music, you know?
Like Gimme Shelter?
Yeah, Gimme Shelter, something like that. Yeah, so it feels a lot like that at first, which is I think a lot of why people didn't get it at first, because it felt like a serious movie.
Yeah. It's very straight face, like, right? And very straight. Like, there's nothing very funny in these first, like, 3 or 4 minutes. These I remember. I don't remember if Rob
Reiner's intro is pretty funny. I mean, he delivers them with a straight face, but it's like, I wanted to give you, what does he say? What it felt like to be with them, and the smell of them.
The sights, the sounds.
Yeah, and the smell.
The smell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely funny. And then the testimonials from fans, like, I think, my theory is that he just went up to people and said, hey, can you talk about, like I feel like maybe he went up to people at, like, Aerosmith shows or something and was like, hey, what do you think about Aerosmith? And
then just cut it in.
Or, Twisted Sister, yeah. And got them and just cut out the part where they might have actually said, like, Twisted Sister or Kiss or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays I've seen that in plenty of other films. But I think that's just really, like, good way to get, like, these real reactions from real people that, like, aren't actors and
right, especially non-actors, and you don't want shitty line deliveries that you have to sort through.
Yeah,
so
and you can tell, right? You can tell that these are real people outside of a concert, and, like, it's just what those two things I just wanted to touch on. It was, like, really setting up this thing as, like, this is a real documentary, and I think, like, they're pretty successful. I mean,
right,
Rob Reiner,
Rob
Reiner's, like, recognizable, I guess. Like, if you were an All in the Family fan, watch that show, but other than that, I feel like he's pretty unrecognizable.
Yeah, probably. I would say probably most of the main actors in this movie, except for Rob Reiner at the time, were pretty unrecognizable, except for save a few cameos.
Yeah, the cameos is where they're recognizable, but I don't think I'd have to look it up, but I don't think that they like Michael Keane or Christopher Guest done much before this.
No, I don't think so.
It makes you wonder when they see like famous cameos in the movie of people not playing themselves. You would think that would be like an indicator of like, hey, this is not a actual documentary I'm watching.
Yeah. Well, I think like two of the biggest cameos, at least now, or maybe there's like really three big ones, but two of the biggest ones that I can think of is Dana Carvey and Billy Crystal at the party.
Yeah, especially at the time, I think Billy Crystal was pretty popular.
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I don't know what launched him into popularity, because I know like when Harry Met Sally was Rob Reiner and done after this.
I think he was on a sitcom, like a soap opera or something before this. But
okay, and Dana Carvey was SNL at some point, but he's pretty unrecognizable. I think Dana Carvey more so than Billy Crystal.
Yeah, I didn't.
Billy Crystal has that voice and that accent.
Yeah, I didn't recognize Dana Carvey the first time I saw this movie. Actually,
yeah, I didn't know until I saw it in the notes. I have to say, I just looked up Christopher Guest to see what he was in Death Wish, the original Death Wish.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alongside Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah,
right.
I guess.
Was he one of the gang members?
He was Patrolman Riley, which probably fits.
Doesn't sound like it then.
Yeah.
No.
Anyways, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so I guess they'd probably done stuff, but nothing big, like,
yeah,
to be recognizable. And I mean, even still, like, you know, they're in so much like goofy hair and makeup stuff that like
it makes them unrecognizable.
They look very different. Because like if you watch Christopher Guest's other films, like
looks
Best
totally
in
different.
Show and and Waiting for Guffman, he looks totally different in all of those movies. Like recognizing him from movie to movie if you don't know. Yeah.
We forgot the other big cameo was George Carlin. He was wasn't he? He's the other rock star, right?
I actually have no idea. I did not catch that cameo at all.
Oh, really? Like George Carlin.
Yeah, I didn't either.
What?
Yeah, so that one. I guess Fran Drescher's in it, but I wouldn't say it's a cameo because was she popular at that point or not until like?
I wouldn't call it a cameo.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a cameo as much as I would call it just an actual part in the movie.
Yeah, maybe the same with like Fred Willard towards the end. He was the military.
Oh
guy
at
the end when they go to the military base, which he is always amazing to me, and I think he kind of knocks it out of the park. I think at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
He kind of brings awesome. Like a new sensibility, a new sense to the movie, right? Like it kind of he livens it up, I think, which I think is at that point it is kind of dreary because they're having problems.
Yeah, it's a movie that's not afraid to not be funny for a little bit, which makes the funny parts all the more rewarding, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like it started the mockumentary craze, but mockumentaries now, I feel like, tend to push it a little far. And I think Spinal Tap has the right kind of balance, where it's not trying to be The Office or anything. It's actually telling a story first and foremost about characters that have real motivations and feelings. And
yeah, you don't get that ironic cutaway. So where the character's like, I would never do X, and then immediate cut to them doing X, that kind of ironic.
Yeah, and there's also not any Jim characters, right? Like from The Office, where like they'll say something and then it'll cut to like someone who knows better as like the audience surrogate to like smirk at the camera and be like, "Isn't this a joke?"
Yeah, it's not like doing this sort of like self-aware documentary thing of like, let's make jokes or let's like, all be aware that we're being filmed and documented. Like they treat it like a real band would.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that probably had a lot to do with the confusion, the initial confusion anyway, I guess.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think of the herpes joke where like it cuts to the interview and they both just basically have like the same gross, nasty like growth on their lips?
Yeah.
And it's just oh God, these guys.
Yeah, I like it, and I think it works. It works well because they don't touch on it, right? Like nobody,
right, they never mention it once.
Nobody explains it. Nobody like points out they have something on their lips. It's just kind of
you get the idea that they're just going after like the same girls available to them and passing them around between each other.
Yeah, that there's some sort of like sharing, and which is pretty gross.
Yeah,
it's a joke that's funny, but it's also like ugh at the same time.
Yeah, it's also like. That's a character moment too, not just a joke,
My favorite joke is, so I'd seen this a long time ago, and when I came back to it, the one thing that stood out the most to me was the drummer deaths. The spontaneous combustion. I thought, was the funniest thing that I.
Yeah, I like whenever it's cutting to like their current drummer, and he's like, "The law of averages says."
Yeah, it can't possibly happen again.
Like someone has to not die at some point.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll be me. Which it's really good. They get a lot of good bits out of that, and I especially love like the one drummer choked on vomit, and then I think it's Christopher Guest. He says like, well, actually, what's weird is that it was somebody else's vomit. Yeah. And we don't know whose. Then they can't,
because you can't dust for vomit.
Yeah,
which is pretty gross.
Considering it's improv is like amazing, like wit and to be to like get that joke. And I'm sure there's like hours of footage of that interview where they try different things, but like that, just off the top of his head, that's pretty good. The drummer deaths is one of those things that like by the end of the movie, if not earlier, like you should totally be aware that this isn't real. Right?
Yeah, once he dies.
Yeah, that interview especially, where it's like choked on someone else's vomit. If you're still on the fence at that point, I feel like it's your fault.
Yeah, you think it would clue you in. And maybe it's just like as comedies evolve, we're more in tune with that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But even still, like one of your drummers spontaneously combusts, and then, of course, by the end of the film, the drummer who's with him the whole time, at the very, very end, he spontaneously combusts during a show. And so like to see those things and then still think that it was a real band. I don't know. That seems just so weird. I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
All right.
But then again, I think the same thing about the War of the Worlds with the Orson Welles broadcast.
Yeah, and maybe it is just
hindsight's
like a product of
2020,
time.
man.
Yeah.
I have to make a change to something I previously said. George Carlin is not in this movie.
Well, then it makes sense why I didn't recognize him.
Good. I feel better now.
Yeah, you guys worried me there for a second. You know who it is? It's Howard Hessman. If you guys have ever seen WKRP in Cincinnati,
I have.
it's the DJ guy who, in my defense, looks a lot like George Carlin.
Okay.
All right, sorry, I just had to put that out there.
Yeah. Defense noted.
Yeah. I guess one of the things that I want to talk about, and this is one of those jokes, and I guess I want to talk about it to ask you guys, but like as a musician, they have the song, I think it's called like Big Bottoms or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But all three members are playing bass guitar for this song. And the one who's normally the bass player, Harry Shearer's character, is playing a double neck bass guitar. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, as like a musician, I look at that and like that's just super funny to me because it's just like ludicrous to have
complete overkill.
Yeah, and but like, what do you guys think of that bit? Like, it's one of my favorite bits in the whole movie.
It's hilarious. I mean, everything is that way, right? You know, like everything they do is either way too much or, you know, like it's ludicrous kind of in it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It kind of goes like in the ridiculousness in the same vein of like stuffing their pants, right? Where it's like
that cucumber.
They're
that he pulls
so
out.
caught up in the fact that, oh man, I get to play a double bass and it looks so cool. Look how cool I look. That they're not even like realizing that it looks so quote unquote cool that it looks stupid, right?
yeah,
So it's like the obliviousness of it all is just great.
yeah, and it's one of those things they don't necessarily call out. Like, no one ever says like this is the all bass song,
Right.
Like,
so
I guess
someone
you
who
kind of have
doesn't
to
watch
know.
rock bands probably wouldn't even get that as a joke.
Yeah, you'd be like, wait a second, are they all playing bass guitars? You know, and is that a double-necked bass guitar?
Yeah, and I think what really seals the deal for me on this joke is like, it's not just this random song that they all three are playing bass. It's the song Big Bottoms, and in music or whatever, like sound, something having like bottom end means like that it has really good bass and low sound. So like thematically,
Yeah, it all makes sense.
it makes sense to have your song where you're all three playing bass to be a song about big bottoms, right? And so it's like, it's ludicrous, but like they've
Put enough
cemented
thought
it
into it.
Yeah, and just enough of reality or enough like make just enough sense that it's like, I think it just makes it even funnier. And it's pretty genius.
I think probably the best gag in the whole movie to me has got to be like when they're on stage and it's either the pod or the Stonehenge. But I think the pods are my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like absolutely like the best. And just the idea that like his face whenever he realizes he can't get out and he just never stops playing. And like the what is it, like the roadie that like runs on stage and like has a fucking blowtorch on stage and like hammering it to try and like knock, it's like you can hear it over the song.
Why is the blowtorch a good idea?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But like just the idea like as soon as it gets open he has to go like right
Yeah.
back in again.
It's a cartoon. It's like a Elmer Fudd, you know, type cartoon. And as soon as
It's
Yeah,
just
that-
great. It's just
yeah.
that's a perfect joke.
It is, and because you spend all that time he's got to get out, and like he finally gets out, and then the song's done,
And he's
and
gotta
they're
get
all
back
supposed to
in.
go back in, and
So-
then he gets trapped. So it's like it just keeps turning, and it's genius.
Yeah, it just builds just the perfect way, and I don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably the joke that when you first watch this as like a little kid before you get all like the nuances of kind of like, oh, okay, this is a failing band, or like this is like a slightly homoerotic relationship, like things like that. Before you're like looking at those things, those are just like the things that like they're just pure comedy, right? Just pure like slapstick
Yeah,
visual
like
comedy.
It's just funny, and it doesn't necessarily depend on character or really much like setup or anything like that. Like, you know, to compare it against like the bass song, like the first time I watched the movie, I didn't even catch that they were all three playing basses, right? So like,
Exactly.
give those that are like subtle, that pay off when you watch a movie again. But this one is just like, I think this is probably the hardest I laughed the first time I ever watched this movie.
Exactly, right. Like those two jokes, especially when they're on stage, like, and that and like the Stonehenge, like the misunderstanding of feet and inches.
Yeah.
Like, that's genius because at some point that's happened to everyone. Right? Like, where they're like, is this feet or inches I'm looking at right here? You know? And then
Yeah.
most people know the difference now, obviously. But that's what's so good about that joke, right? Is just, it's just like every man enough to where it could happen to anyone that you know or you. And
Yeah.
But like to happen in such like a professional and embarrassing way in front of like several hundred or thousand people.
Yeah.
It's just great. It's like comedy gold.
Yeah, and with the Stonehenge thing, like, we actually know what's going to happen beforehand, right? Like, because we have the scene where he meets up with the woman who's designed it, and he thinks that she's showing him a prototype, or like a small version of what it's going to be, and he finds out that, no, that's it, and they have the whole confusion, right? But I think, like, for that scene, because then we get him playing a long time before that comes down, like, having seen that before, the scene beforehand, like, we're just in anticipation of like, oh, they're doing this epic song, and they have no idea that this thing's gonna come down, and we have like, it's super fun to like have that anticipation, right? Like, as opposed to like, if we knew that one of the pods was broken before the pod song, like that wouldn't work, right?
Right.
And I think it's just one of the genius touches of like comedy with the Stonehenge is like letting us know beforehand that that's what's going to happen. Like, it would probably be funny if that just happened, but we might be like confused on like, why. I don't understand how this happened.
Explain it afterwards.
Yeah, you have to explain it afterwards or somehow during.
Well, I think what's so great about it, if I'm not mistaken, the scene before when they're talking to Angelica Houston and they're writing the dimensions down. I don't think they ever let you in on what the joke's gonna be. You just have to like observe that they're writing inches instead of feet.
Yeah, well, they write it in a restaurant, right?
Right.
And then the scene with Angelica Houston, she actually has it there, and he's like, oh, the big one's going to be great. And she's like, what do you mean the big one? This is it. This is the real one.
Is it Michael McKean's face when it comes down and like the dwarves come out and they start dancing around? That's just, that's great.
And that's that other twist. That's like the twisting the joke one more too, right? Is like,
The
you
dwarves.
think it's just going to be really small, but then the idea that, they get dwarves to try to make them look bigger.
Yeah.
It's so good. Something else I wanted to talk about that I always forget about until I'm watching the movie and it happens. But like, there's this one scene where Rob Reiner's talking to him, and he's asking Christopher Guest and Michael McKean's characters, like, do you remember the first song that you guys ever wrote together?
Oh yeah.
And so they start like kind of trying to remember it and like humming it, and one of them's humming like the melody of the guitar, and the other one starts singing, and like that song actually sounds good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it sounds pretty decent. Like, it
sounds
bluesy.
like the best song that they perform in the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, which is amazing, because I guess we haven't talked about it yet, but like, their songs are so bad.
I like their song about it's like, do I have to come out and say it? Give me some money. He's like, you know what I want, you know what I need.
Yeah, that's
do
like
I gotta come out and spell it out for you?
Yeah, that's like that really old, like, it's sort of like this Beatles-esque performance.
Yeah. The song's great. Give me some money.
But even that song is like really bad, and I just think the suggestion of like, you know, it's one of those things. It's also like there's so much truth to it. Is like the first song and their early stuff like that. It was actually good, and somewhere along the way
they sold out.
I don't know if they sold out and started making crappy music, but like maybe that's it. The suggestion, but yeah, somewhere along the way they just started making like pure garbage, and I guess you get the hint that like they are trying to adapt and go along with like the trends, because in the Give Me Some Money song, it's like a Beatles performance, and they're very much like a Beatles band, and the song's very like kind of goofy, happy.
Yeah.
And then we have the flower song.
Like, like the 60s type.
It's 60s and they're very hippie-ish. Mm-hmm. And so it seems like they kind of like mold with the times, right?
Right. Yeah. It also seems like the further they get from where they started,
the worse
the
they
crappier
get.
their songs get.
Oh yeah. Their metal stuff is just awful. And I love like there's so many of like Christopher Guest guitar solos.
What is the one? He gets the violin.
Yeah.
And he's like kicking another guitar. Like
yeah. That's my favorite part of that. Is that there's just a guitar sitting there and he just kind of starts kicking it to make it like with his foot.
That's part of his solo.
Yeah, and it's just awful noise. And I think that's like a bit that like it was like Led Zeppelin or some band like that. Like one of them did a guitar solo with a violin, playing their guitar with a violin bow.
Oh, yeah.
And I think like they kind of took that and was like, well, he'll actually play his guitar with a violin.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny, but all his solos are just like ear piercingly bad. Like they're just noise. There's no rhythm. There's no really good like melody.
Like a solo for solo's sake.
He does like the guitarist soloing faces really well. Like when he hits like a high note, like you got to make like a face like, ooh yeah, I just yeah, and like almost like you've surprised yourself with your own note. I love all those guitar solos. Like I love how bad they are, and his dedication to playing them like they're just the greatest solos in the world.
What did you guys think when every band has this, but when the girl shows up, did that help the movie? It gave more conflict to it, but what do you guys think?
I think it definitely helps. I think that's where the two leads, Michael McKean and help me,
Christopher Guest.
Thank you.
I was going to say yes. Well,
Christopher Guest. That's where their characters actually start to feel a little more complete to me, because then you get the undercurrent of like Christopher
jealousy.
Guest's just like, I don't know, it's infatuation, or I would just call it love for Michael McKean's character, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a Yoko Ono situation with the girlfriend when she shows up. I guess like their kind of take on that. And I guess the question I have in regards to what you said is, do you think that Christopher Guest's character is upset that she's there because she's going to come in between their friendship? Because, going back to like the herpes bit, they're sharing women, right? Mm-hmm. And doing that together. And is she coming between that, or do you think that he has a sense that like she's not good for the band musically?
She has an influence over Michael McKean's character that he usually has.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants her leading Michael McKean to different conclusions than he could, right? Like, you see that kind of come on later whenever he wants her to help manage the band. That probably was her idea,
Yeah, absolutely.
And just spending time with her. I think it may not even be something as defined as what you're saying. I think it might just be like a gut feeling he's got of like purely just emotional, like almost like a kid, just sad because that's his best friend,
Yeah. And that's kind of like underneath the surface. Like that's it's like deeper. It's one of those things again that like we don't get the scene where at least not that I recall, where like she's telling him like I need to co-manage the band. We don't get this scene that like really like sets that up. Like I think it's all in Michael McKean's performance.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the funnier jokes, or the ones that tickled me the most, was when she's booking them for different places, and they go to it was the puppet show, and they're like second bill to the
to the puppets.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, and once she shows up, they're on this fall, and I think that's
right. Once she starts co-managing, it's pretty funny, or
yeah.
not co-managing, just managing. And then of course it leads to the military base show where they should have never been booked.
No.
No, I think it's That's very funny, and I think there's a bit of an expectation of what you think's going to happen when you find they're booked at this military base show, because it's not at all like their type of music, and you kind of expect that to be the joke, and then they blindside you with Christopher Guest's like wireless guitar pack, which he talks about way earlier in the film, right? Like it's at least like 15 minutes or so before the military base show, but he's got the wireless pack and it starts picking up the air traffic control and it starts coming through his amp, which is not the, I guess they set that up earlier, the wireless receiver bit. And then they give you the situation where you think the situation is going to be the joke, right? You think Spinal Tap playing at this military base is going to be the joke. And then they blindside you with that. I think so they keep you on your toes.
Layer to it.
Yeah.
Fred Willard. Fred Lillard? What is his last name? Willard. Yeah, his character, how he's talking, he's like, yeah, my hair's getting long. Like.
My hair's, yeah. He's great at that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, he just, for his like brief time, like he just shines and really like reinvigorates the movie, and I think it's something the girlfriend character does too. Like, we kind of get to the point where like we're just watching them be goofy screw ups and whatnot. And she shows up and takes the movie in a different, like, gives it a little bit more life, and then
gives it the conflict in the story,
Yeah, which I think we need to keep the movie going. And then again, like we're on that downturn, and then to like bring in Fred Willard is just it just picks the movie right back up because he's amazing. And so at the base show, Christopher Guest gets fed up when the air traffic control's coming through, and he leaves. So the band's kind of broken up, and eventually, I mean, I don't remember exactly what happens between, but eventually it comes back that like they've got a hit song. It's in Japan, right?
Right. One of their songs. It was the Love Farm, I believe, was a hit in Japan. Japan loves Love Farm.
Yeah, and it's Christopher Guest when he finally comes back is the one that tells him.
Yeah,
the reason he's back is they have a hit show and they're
peace offering.
They gotta go.
Going to go tour in Japan.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty much the movie. I kind of wanted to talk about the end credit sequence a little bit because the end credits, I believe, are the real credits. Like, it's not like directed by Marty DeBurgi, like Rob Reiner's like fake director name. I think it's like directed by Rob Reiner. I'm pretty sure that's there. I know for sure it lists like Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, all of the actors by their real names, right?
Right.
And their normal credits. And I think that's kind of a weird step for this movie to take.
They should have put some fake credits in there.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, I know it's like rules, right? You have to list.
Yeah, maybe there are certain rules. Like the Coen brothers always had to go with Joel Coen directing because they weren't allowed to have two directors,
right?
When they first started. So maybe maybe there's certain rules with the credits where you have to.
Well, they could have done fake credits and then gone into the real credits eventually.
Yeah,
but
like maybe take some of their bonus footage and like have that with like the fake credits over it, and it's just it's one of those things. Another thing of like, why did people think this was real? Because you have your list of actors and crew that worked on producing this film, and like you have the actor's name next to the character they played, right? And I don't know. I just, if there was any way to do it, I feel like it would have been more fun to just like give us a fake credit list and that's it. And you may be right that like they can't do that.
They can probably do a fake one, but they can't do a fake real one.
Or maybe just in 1983/4, whenever they were putting it together, they just weren't as advanced in their humor.
Maybe they just didn't see it that far.
They just didn't see it that far. They were like, we're on the verge of something new with this thing we just made. We can't possibly make it any better or improve upon this idea.
Yeah. And maybe it's not better. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what would make Spinal Tap better.
You know what would make
Spinal
Tap better? You know what? Everyone's been saying this movie's no good for years.
It's, maybe they tried it and it just didn't work or something. I don't know. Like, it's not my place.
I want to ask you guys a question because this is the most modern, right? We haven't watched any other modern ones. We've been watching, Seven Seal, Seven Samurai, other movies with the number 7 in it. But what do you guys think about this being part of the Criterion? Or I know it deserves to be, but because you go from Seven Seal to this, how do you guys feel about it? It's just an interesting.
I think it's great. I'm of the opinion that all kinds of movies are interesting.
Right.
I even watch all kinds of movies in my everyday life, right? And I try to talk about all kinds of movies on this podcast because it's fun to dive into French New Wave, or it's fun to dive into Ingmar Bergman or Akira Kurosawa. But it's also fun to talk about Rob Reiner and Star Wars or whatever,
Absolutely.
So movies in general, the more diverse the collection and the more it spans, the more into it I am.
Completely, I agree with you, and I think that's why we did the podcast, right? Is because we can go from one week talking about Seventh Seal to talking about This Is Spinal Tap, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if it would feel like a complete collection if it was only movies like Seven Seal or Fellini movies or Kurosawa movies, and I think to have a movie like this sort of solidifies its status as what it's doing. It's taking important films. It's not taking, it's not necessarily taking great films or artistic films. It's taking
interesting
films.
And important films.
Yeah, interesting and important films. Because I've seen Criterion movies that I don't like at all, but there's something, there's probably something to them.
Sure, and we'll review it eventually. Yeah, we'll review it eventually. Yeah. But Sallow or 120 Days of Sodom, can one say they like watching that movie?
I haven't seen that, so spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, it's sit.
Coming up soon.
Yeah. It's an interesting sit. So
yeah,
I'll be interested to see if this is your first time, if you genuinely liked it or found it more interesting or important.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm interested in seeing what happens there, but I do think that This Is Spinal Tap makes the Criterion Collection feel more accessible and less stuffy.
They need those every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not that those other movies aren't good, but
sure. But every now and then you need a Wes Anderson or a This Is Spinal Tap to throw in there, so it's more accessible to maybe someone who's not into artsy movies yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes they got to find them on their own.
Yeah, and it's an important film. We talked about its importance in the mockumentary and the effect that it had culturally, and I actually just realizing we didn't even touch on the amp going to 11 scene yet.
We talked about the IMDb thing.
We talked about the IMDb rating, but we didn't talk too much about that scene. But everyone knows the amp goes to 11 scene.
Right.
Everybody, whether they're into music, whether they're into movies, even just that bit has infiltrated.
Yeah, that's the joke
society.
That defines this movie.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know that there are many others, but I just think it had such a huge pop culture influence in that sense. But it's important. And
yeah, absolutely.
I guess
I just wasn't. It was just it's a contrast to what we have been watching from the Criterion Collection into this one. I just was interested in you guys.
It's a breath of fresh air, if you want my opinion.
It's a little bit different. Yeah,
it's very nice to be able to break it up. Real quickly before we get into the next film, I just the two jokes we didn't touch on that I just wanted to point out, because I never noticed this until this time I was watching through the film, is the umlaut in Spinal Tap is over the N.
You're talking about the two dots?
The two dots, is over the N, which makes no sense because umlauts are specifically for vowels.
They just thought it looked
to
cool.
create the sound of the vowels. So to have it over the N,
just shows they're fucking stupid.
Yes,
or just they thought it looked cool.
Yeah. It's one of those touches, and nobody ever talks about it. No one ever. They don't pronounce it weird or anything, which makes
they probably don't
funnier.
even know what that is.
Yeah.
No, it's just one of those things that's it's associated with metal, know.
Yeah.
Sometimes
old characters, old lettering.
Druids.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other one I think is really good is when they go to visit the grave of Elvis. and they're in Graceland, and they try to sing Heartbreak Hotel,
But they keep getting different keys and stuff.
and do the harmonies, but they can't quite figure it out, which I think is like, it's just like the perfect representation of who they actually are,
Right.
and like compared to what they think they are, and like versus like Elvis,
Yeah.
I think that scene's really good.
Was
And
that
it
the
says a
real
lot.
Elvis grave?
I assume so.
I thought so. I mean, I've never been there, but like I thought, which was an interesting thing if they could film there. But I think so.
Yeah.
Cool.
Write in if it's not and tell us.
Yeah. And do you guys want to give final thoughts or anything? Like, I'll just say I love this movie. It's probably my fourth or fifth time to watch it, and it just gets better every time. It's really good.
I'd say it's my third time to watch it, and it still holds up. I saw it probably the first time when I was in high school. It's probably even funnier now,
Yeah, I definitely I like this movie a lot. I'd watch it again. It's a perfect almost. And this is almost heresy to say, but like a background movie, because you can just have it on and you can almost watch it at any moment. Like, or if it pops on TV, it doesn't like everything's funny about it. There's like, does that make sense? So,
You
like
come in and out of it,
yeah,
and something funny's
yeah.
going on.
Yeah,
You don't
absolutely.
necessarily have to pay 100% attention to it because
Right.
there's so many bits.
Right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, loved it.
All right. So I know you already kind of did, but Mike, do you want to tell us about the next week's film?
Sure. Next week we have, or not next week, but the next Criterion film we have
That's
will
right.
will actually be The Silence of the Lambs, the, I believe, second movie with a portrayal of Hannibal Lecter. It's starring Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, and directed by Jonathan Demme.
Yeah. I'm excited. I watched this one probably a year and a half or 2 years ago with my girlfriend because she had not seen it, and she wanted to watch
nice.
something
Did
like
she
kind
like
of spooky. Oh, she loved it. She's actually like, really excited that we get to watch it again.
You know what? An element we need to add to this show is the girlfriend section, or like, did your girlfriend like it? And then like Seventh Seal, like, did your girlfriend like it? Because does it give the girlfriend pass?
Yeah.
Oh, on that note, excuse me, my girlfriend cracked up during the Stonehenge scene. Like,
It's funny.
Cracked up. She had never seen This Is Spinal Tap and didn't know what was going on. But man, just like what you were saying, she knew the joke was coming, and watching the band's reaction to seeing this like Stonehenge, which is just like insultingly, embarrassingly small, is just great. Like, that was probably the hardest I've ever heard her laugh in a movie. So, there you go. It still holds up.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move into our top three. We're doing our top three band/music movies, and I guess the specifications that we had for this was that it can't be a musical. So
Other than that, go with your gut.
yeah, non-musical band music movies. Top three. Chris, do you want to go first since you haven't been here in a while?
Yes, in no particular order. I think I'm going to go with. Have you guys ever seen Amadeus?
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time. But I'm not 100% on all the details. But I remember I loved that movie.
Oh, it's great.
And I love Amadeus, and I think that it fits in there. He was a musician, or conducted.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
so-
music
Definitely.
based.
Yeah, that's a
So-
good one. That's a good one.
All right, that's my first one.
I watched
That
a
has some
music
of the best-
appreciation.
Yeah, exactly.
class.
Me too. That has some of the best old age makeup I've ever seen on anybody.
Yeah.
And that movie was made like, what, 79? Something like that?
Yeah.
80? Something? I don't know.
Yeah, that was a good one. And I guess watching it in a music appreciation class, I wasn't really sure how it was going to be, but like, unfortunately, I had to watch it like split up over 2 class periods. But
Oh,
like,
bummer.
even then, like I was still really into like the last half. Like,
Yeah.
it's good. Okay,
Cool.
Mike, you want to go next?
Sure. I will go ahead and throw kind of a more rare one out there. 2007's Control, directed by
Yes.
Anton Corbijn, about the lead singer of Joy Division, Ian Curtis.
Tell me,
Yeah,
I
thought you might put that one on there.
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, and I'll hold that thought, Chris.
Sorry.
But that was Anton Corbijn's first movie, and man, I think it's great. it's great if you like Joy Division or any music of that genre. They re-record some of the songs, and which I always enjoy in movies whenever the actors and the performers actually re-record some of the songs they're playing, so they don't just lip sync to actual already recorded songs that we're familiar with, because that's never convincing, right? So
Right.
Anyway, it's all filmed in black and white, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And there's a part in that movie that I'll kind of summarize where it's a singer who I guess suffers from like severe bipolar depression, and he goes out there and there's this one scene where he says something like, "I go out there and I perform, and they just don't understand how much I give every night." And I think that was just great. Like, that stayed with me I think ever since I saw it, right? Like, the idea of you can go out there and you can perform your art for someone, but the art that they're seeing and the art that you're putting out there, don't always connect or mean the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that was just a beautiful sentiment. Have you guys seen this movie?
I have not actually. So you answered all my questions because I wasn't. I remember hearing it, or I remember hearing about it when it came out, and I was always curious to see. And I never really knew who Joy Division was, but I remember hearing that it was just a really great movie. And
It's a
I
very good movie.
came across it when I was looking for movies, and it piqued my interest again.
Yeah, and I can testify for someone who has no idea about Joy Division at all. Like at the time when I watched it, of course, now I've heard them and listened to them mostly because of the movie. But having not seen it at all, or not heard them at all, I'm sorry, it was still really great.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
Yeah, and especially the covers they do of the Joy Division songs. They're so raw and they're so energetic in that early 80s industrial punk kind of way. Like post-punk. I don't know what you call Joy Division, but yeah, it's good. And I think if you're a fan of early 80s music like that, or punk bands, or just great movies, give it a shot.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go next, and I'm also in no particular order. And I think my number 3, I'm going to go with another Christopher Guest film and go with A Mighty Wind.
Oh.
And I don't know if have either you guys seen it?
Yeah.
No.
So it's about this folk festival that's being put on in a town, and it's actually a reuniting of the members of Spinal Tap for one of the folk groups. It's less like Spinal Tap, but that it focuses on one group. It's a little bit more like Best in Show, if you've seen that, where there's it's following 3 or 4 different groups who are going to perform at this folk festival. And one of them is a group called the Folksmen, and it's Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, and Harry Shearer
Nice.
in a folk band. So it's like the reuniting of Spinal Tap. And what's fun is actually I was reading that on one of Spinal Tap's tours, they had developed this Folksman character. I think this was before Mighty Wind. They had the Folksman open up for Spinal Tap. And it's this very country folky music, and they were booed off the stage.
That's funny.
When they opened for him. I think it's good, but it's really, really funny. It's got Jane Lynch in it, and that guy that
Ed Begley Jr. is he in it?
Ed Begley Jr. Maybe Fred Willard is in it for
He's
sure.
in all of Christopher Guest's movies.
Yeah, Eugene Levy
Of course.
also in it, and Carolyn Ray. No, not Carolyn Ray. Catherine O'Hara.
Oh, okay.
The mom from Home Alone is in it. She's in all of his movies, but it's kind of the usual cast of his movies, and it's really funny. A lot of really subtly funny songs and subtle things going on, and it's just great.
All right, so my next, this one may push the limit. We'll see if you guys are okay with this one. But my next one is Red Shoes.
The Red Shoes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason, the music in that is great. There's a whole segment where she's just dancing, and the music is playing behind her. I think I kind of pushed the limits of the parameters.
It's almost more of a theater movie than a band music movie, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways,
and it's a great movie.
Yeah, I just wanted an excuse to be able to talk about the red shoes in there for a little bit.
Yeah. If you came at me with something like, I don't know, like Baby Driver or something like that, I might have like vetoed you. But Red Shoes is so good, I'll allow it.
All right. Well, thank goodness, because it's a great movie.
It is a fantastic movie.
Yep.
Yeah, wonderful. That girl's eyes in it. We'll get there. I think that one's not too far down the line, at least within the next like couple of years, and we'll get there. But like until then, I just like that girl's eyes in the movie is just like so striking. It's like it always sticks with me.
Yeah, just that sequence. I mean, how long is it? It's like 10 to 12 minutes where it's just a dancing sequence, correct? Yeah, and you would think you're like there's 10 to 12 minutes where she's just dancing. You know, like I don't want to see that, but when you watch it, it's great.
Yeah.
All right. Mike.
All right. My second movie that I'm going to choose is actually by Damien Chazelle, who recently did La La Land, but that's not the movie I'm choosing. I'm doing the one he did right before that, starring Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons, called Whiplash.
Oh, I did not know that you liked Whiplash that much. I guess we probably haven't ever talked about Whiplash.
Nah, man, Whiplash is great. What's not to like? It's so well acted. It's so intense, man. Like, I don't know. J.K. Simmons in that movie is so scary and so just impressive to watch. I mean, it veers a little into like maybe silly territory in like the third act or the end of the second act, but that's okay. The whole movie is so good, and the drumming is filmed so intensely. Like the idea, and I don't play instruments, but like, there's a scene where he's sitting there playing the drums, and he's trying to go faster, and his body just physically will not go faster. And he is trying, and you can just see him, like his muscles just not cooperating with him. And like the sweat and the intensity in his face, and it's just phenomenal acting all around by Miles Teller. Obviously, he could probably really play drums, but all the stuff that they actually do in the movie, it looks perfect. You know, it looks flawless. So, it just technically, it's an amazing movie in my opinion.
Yeah, I really liked it. And one of the things I really like about it is going off what you said, that like it really shows that like the physicalness, the physicality.
Right.
That it takes to play drums and to play them well and like fast and like I think you get a really good sense of like just how much it takes out of you to play the drums, and that it's not, it's not just
it seems like fucking murder.
Like,
it sounds terrible based on this movie. I don't know why anyone would ever want to do it.
Yeah, it's super fun. I can vouch for that.
But you didn't have J.K. Simmons yelling at you.
Yeah, you didn't have him
That's
slapping
true.
you whenever you're either before or after time.
Yeah, that would have made it worse, probably.
Yeah.
I hate being slapped.
Yeah. Well, next time you play drums, I'll slap you if you get off time, even though I can't keep time. So,
just guess.
You won't. I don't know. I don't know if you're on time or not,
while
but
you're playing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, great movie. I liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my number 2, I think, is going to be Unfaithfully Yours.
Ooh.
Yes. Are you familiar with this one, Chris? You have a look.
No, I'm not familiar. I have not seen it.
Rex Harrison.
Yeah, it's Rex Harrison is like the star of it, and he plays this orchestra conductor, and he's like one of the greatest orchestra conductors in the world. It was written by Preston Sturges. It is on Criterion Collection, so we'll watch it eventually. But it's a comedy, and I guess one of my favorite lines from it. There's kind of a lower class guy who's a big fan of his conducting, and he's talking to him, and he says there's a Bach, Beethoven type musician called Handel or something like that. But I think he's like lower class. He mispronounces, but he says like no one handles Handel the way that you handle Handel. I think that's like it's full of like just really cleverly like written witty dialogue. But the story is he's conducting this big show, and right before it, he's hired a private eye to spy on his wife because he thinks that she's cheating, and he gets news from the private eye that like she is. And so right before like the day of the performance, and So then he goes on and performs 3 different big pieces. In each piece, we go into his mind and see him acting out his revenge and like what he thinks is going to happen with her.
Along with the music?
Along with the music.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like the music is kind of the undertone a little bit here and there throughout the scenes. But it's really, really funny. Like one of my favorite like comedies.
I'll have to check it out.
Of all time. It's really good.
I love
it's
Preston
fantastic.
Sturges.
Rex Harrison's voice is great.
It is, and he was like perfect for that part too.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Chris.
Cool. Chris, last one.
All right. My last one is going to be Empire Records.
Oh, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
That almost made my list.
It's kind of one of those like nostalgia things, like but I love all the actors that are in it. It's a lot of fun. You can I don't know. I
agree.
enjoy this
No.
movie.
For kids of a certain generation, like 90s kids, late 80s kids, that movie's very important. Very quotable.
And it's got all the actors that like I love from other movies, like Ethan. What is his last name?
Ethan Embry.
Embry. Yeah, Can't Hardly Wait. Like those. He was like my representation on screen when I would go. Like he was in Can't Hardly Wait. Dancer, Texas, population like 91. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. And this just fits in there with all those other ones that just like when I was getting into movies, and it just it's got Liv Tyler in it.
Was he in Suburbia, the Richard Linklater movie?
Ethan Embry?
Yeah.
No.
Seems
Giovanni Ribisi is
That's
the main
right.
character.
It seems like that would have been right up his alley at that time.
Yeah,
it does. Like the Steve Zahn character in Suburbia could very well have been Ethan Embry, and it worked out as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chris. I distracted you.
No, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, so that's another movie that just fits into that my wheelhouse as I was coming of age, that I saw that I was like, Suburbia, it means so much, man.
You mean Empire Records?
No, I meant
I think he's
Suburbia
talking
was
about
part of it.
Oh, you're still talking about Suburbia now.
But all of those movies kind of mean the same thing. Empire Records is there too. Like all of those movies as I was growing up, and so yeah, absolutely.
Suburbia and Empire Records and like
Dancing
SLC
Texas.
Punk.
SLC Punk is
were those movies that like I just went to the video store and would rent constantly.
Sure.
Like almost every weekend, that I could go to the store, I would come home with like one of those movies. Empire Records was a lot.
I would say Dazed and Confused fits in that category too, although it was never one of mine that was in heavy rotation when I was a kid.
Yeah, I didn't watch it as a kid. I didn't watch it till after high school.
That's odd. That the three, like it doesn't. That was not one of the films I watched that was like this is
Yeah, I'm trying not to like geek out on Empire Records because I could like tell you like all of the characters' names, and I will mention that the kid in Empire Records who comes in, who shoplifts and with the gun and stuff, and maybe I mentioned this on the podcast, but he's in 3 Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri.
I don't think you have. I didn't know that he was.
Yeah, he's the. Did you see it?
I have not yet. That's
okay, well then I won't spoil it for you because he doesn't come into the movie till much later.
Okay,
but that kid he's in 3 Billboards.
Okay.
All right, so my last movie about musicians, music, I would have to consider to be Frank, starring Michael Fassbender, directed by Lenny Abramson. Have either of you seen this movie?
No, I've never even heard of it.
You've never? Oh man! So I've never seen it, but like it's so interesting to me, and I've heard different things about it. But it's definitely one that I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it the best movie on my list, even though it's number 1. But it's a little rare indie movie that I saw a few years ago that I wanted to talk about a little bit. It's got Michael Fassbender as the main character, Frank. He plays I guess a mentally challenged or someone with brain damage, and he wears a papier-mâché head.
Yeah, you never even get to see Fassbender's face.
Yeah. So the whole movie, he's basically got this papier-mâché head on that looks weird, and he's the singer of a band, and they kind of play like weird, punky kind of songs, more of like in the vein of Joy Division, I guess, like we were talking about earlier. But it's got Domhnall Gleeson in it, about this guy who wants to join this band, and it's got Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it's kind of just about this third party that comes in and sees the greatness of this band, but as a result of seeing the greatness and trying to show it to everyone, it can also smother what makes it great to begin with, you know? So it's a pretty great little movie. I don't know if it is necessarily the best movie that we're going to be talking about, but if any of you get the chance to watch it or see it on, definitely give it a shot, because Michael Fassbender's also really good in it, and he sings his own songs.
Yeah,
I sometimes listen to it on Spotify.
Oh, there's definitely a novelty to it. You know, like a curiousness that I have. Like, it may not be the greatest movie, but because of this stunt that they've got going on, I'm definitely curious.
Is the head kind of like a moral oral looking sort of like
It looks
brown
like big,
hair?
Looks like brown hair. Like looks like Big Boy that Dr. Evil flies away in Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Okay, maybe I have seen something for this movie, because that image sounds familiar to me.
It's on
Yeah,
the
if
cover.
you've
It's like a green cover with like that face on it. It just says Frank.
Yeah.
It doesn't have Michael Fassbender's face or Maggie Gyllenhaal's face or anything like that, so you're not going to like scroll through and be like, I recognize this immediately.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah. How about you, Justin?
Last one. I think it's ludicrous to leave off Spinal Tap, but that's boring since we just talked about it
Sure.
for a while. But I think another film that's just as good and just as deserving to be on any list, Almost Famous.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of expected it to be on more lists.
That's why I didn't put it,
honestly.
is because I expected it to be on both of your lists.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... Oh, I didn't even write it down.
Oh.
But, yeah, I
Didn't even make
expected
Chris's short list. Chris hates Almost Famous, everybody.
I had a Hard
please.
Day's Night and Almost Famous as runners-up, in case you guys took
I had a
mine.
hard day's night.
Yeah. I think my runners-up that didn't quite make it, where that we haven't mentioned already, is Inside Llewyn Davis and School of Rock.
Inside Llewyn Davis is so good.
Yeah. Yeah. But Almost Famous, it's the story of the band, or the kid who I think is based kind of on a true story.
It's kind of
based on
based
Cameron
on
Crowe,
Cameron
right?
Crowe's-
Who wrote and directed it, actually.
Sort of.
But yeah, so the kid kind of weasels his way into a job writing for Rolling Stone and touring with the band Stillwater. And it's got Billy Crudup and Jason Lee play two of the more upfront characters of or
I would
members of the
say
band.
in both of their best performances, in my opinion.
Yeah, very...
I'm very partial to Jason Lee and Mallrats. And we're laughing, but I'm very actually.
out.
I think he
laughing,
makes
but
that
I'm not
movie
joking.
so good. Yeah, but yeah, he is also very good and Almost Famous. And the whole movie is really good. Philip Seymour Hoffman is in it. Frances McDormand, Zooey Deschanel.
Oh yeah,
There's
Zooey
a-
Deschanel. It's that movie. You always think of. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
But you always think of. Of course, now I can't
You
think of her
interrupted
name.
me to talk about something you don't even know.
Yeah, you interrupted him to just think about
No,
your
what is
thought.
her name? Penny, the daughter.
Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson. Yes,
Yeah.
you always think of Kate Hudson, but you forget. This is where I fell in love with Zooey Deschanel. You know, like
Yeah, it's this and Elf were one of them. But
Now,
yeah,
for
it's-
me,
it's-
it was Big Trouble. Did you guys ever see that movie
Oh, I
with
love Big
Johnny
Trouble.
Knoxville and
Yes.
Tim Allen
yeah,
and Ben
Yeah.
Foster? Anyway.
absolutely. That one's great. Jason Lee also in that one.
Yeah, Puggy.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like this sort of coming of age story, but also you get some of like the same stuff that Spinal Tap had going on, of like a band struggling with like fame and getting bigger, which I guess Spinal Tap was kind of
they're on
not
the other
struggling
end
with
of that.
fame. They were kind of on the downhill. But this band, Stillwater's kind of on the uphill. I always remember like the big famous scene. Maybe it's a scene that everyone remembers, but like the scene where they're all on the bus listening to Tiny Dancer and they all start singing it together. It's just like, it's one of those movie moments that like I'll hopefully never forget, like barring, mental issues that I have later on in life. But like maybe even then, I feel like it's one of those things that'll just stick with me forever. I'll
Sure.
never forget it. And like like the chills that I get watching that scene, like, and the chills I got the first time watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that scene alone is what made me come so close to putting it on my list. is because when I think of that movie, that is immediately the first thing I think of is that scene on the bus where they're all mad at each other. And then Elton John comes on.
I actually think Almost Famous is probably the one that fits the most on the list, but because that it fits so well on the list, I don't think any of us picked it because
it's too obvious.
Well, somebody else is going to pick it.
Somebody else will get it.
So thank you, Justin, for not letting that one slip through the cracks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, that is it for this episode.
Thanks for sticking it out.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, the listener, for listening. And thank you, as always, to Jake Wagner-Russell, who made our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
So if you want to follow, and subscribe, rate and review us on iTunes, feedback is going to be, what makes the show strong. So facebook.com/casuallycriterion podcast is where you find us there. Twitter and Instagram at casualcriterion. Email us at casuallycriterion@gmail.com. And Mike, why don't you tell us what we're going to do next week?
We are actually going to be reviewing The Phantom Thread. And we are actually going to be doing some bonus episodes before Oscar season. So we tried to do all the Best Picture nominees we could in as few episodes as possible. So we did 3 Best Picture nominees last episode, but I think for future we're actually just going to do little bonus episodes for each review, and then maybe a couple full-length reviews. So be on the lookout for those.
Phantom Thread I haven't seen it yet, and I'm so excited. That was the one that I knew that I had to get back for. I was like, you guys cannot review this until I need to be back for that one for sure. So I'm excited about that one.
Yeah. And by the way, officially, welcome back, Chris.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be back. I'm very excited. You can't see it, Mike, but I've got bruises from the play all up and down my arms because it gets violent.
Did they beat you?
My brother does in the play, and I still got one more weekend to go. So
Your brother's also in the play?
Pretend it's acting,
Oh, okay.
Justin.
That's how it's done.
Yes.
Acting.
And there's one other thing I kind of wanted to mention, just to toss out there. We're thinking, and we're not quite sure, but we want to do an Oscar bet. So be thinking about who you want to pick, and then maybe there will be a reward if you guys beat us on the Oscar bet. So look for that on our social medias.
Yeah, we all pick what we think should be the winner. Whoever picks the most right wins a prize. TBD, to be determined.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about that more as the time draws nigh.
Yes. All right. Thanks so much, guys, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again.